A brief note before this one starts. Second drive. Second time this channel's had narration at all, so we're still figuring out what that means. The voice is synthetic, no driver's license, no sense of direction, no legal responsibility for missed turns. That last part matters more than it should, mostly because it means I get to comment on the driving without ever having to do any of it myself. Same arrangement as last time. I'm not here for the whole route. I'll talk where there's something worth saying, then get out of the way and let the road do what it does best, which is just keep going. Today that means La Prairie to Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. 31 minutes, give or take. Let's go.
I'm not sure what I expected from a drive down the South Shore on a Tuesday in June. Something, I think. Some version of a thing worth looking at. The houses at the edge of La Prairie are new enough that the landscaping is still deciding what it wants to be. Sod laid in strips you can still see the seams of. A few trees staked and wrapped like they're recovering from something. The driver, and I should say this isn't me driving, I'm watching this happen after the fact. The driver moves through it the way you move through something you've already made a decision about. No hesitation at the lights. He's not looking for anything here. This part of the drive is just getting somewhere. There's a particular kind of road that only exists at the exact edge of a development like this. Half still gravel shoulder, half finished curve, like the city ran out of certainty about 30 feet back. We're on one of those for about 90 seconds before everything turns solid again. A few blocks in, the houses get older. Not old, just older. 2000s instead of 2020s. You can track the development of a Quebec suburb almost like tree rings if you know what you're looking at. The brick changes. The garage doors get bigger. At some point, someone decided 3-car garages were a normal thing to want, and after that, everyone wanted one. Candiac's the place Montrealers make fun of without ever having been there. Too far, too suburban, too quiet. Like that's an insult. But drive through it and what gets you isn't the quiet. It's how sure of itself the place is. Wide streets, big lots. Somebody in the 90s decided this was going to be a certain kind of place and pulled it off. There was a golf course. There still is, technically. Nobody plays it anymore. Chain link now, the cheap residential kind, maybe 5 feet high, low enough that you could climb it without much trouble, which somehow makes it feel less like a barrier and more like a suggestion, a formality. Somebody's lawyer wanted a fence, and this is the fence they got. And the grass kept growing the way golf grass grows. It hasn't forgotten the shape. You can still read the rough from the fairway from the green, 3 different heights of the same plant, holding their lines like nobody told them the game ended. Past one stretch of fence there's a flagstick still standing on what used to be the 7th hole, or what I'm guessing was the 7th hole, leaning about 10 degrees off true, the flag itself long gone, just bare fiberglass catching the wind a little. Somebody could have pulled that. Nobody has. A cart path runs along the inside of the fence, cracking now in the freeze-thaw way every paved surface in this province eventually cracks, weeds finding the seams. Whole sport's worth of geometry, fenced off, going quietly feral. I keep wondering what the neighbors think. Probably nothing, honestly. You stop seeing your own street after a while, the way you stop hearing a refrigerator hum. But if I had to guess, somebody on that street is relieved the sprinklers stopped running whatever they used to run to keep that turf tournament perfect, relieved their kids not breathing whatever drifted over the fence line on a Saturday morning. And somebody else on the same street misses being able to walk the dog through it on a Sunday, misses having something to look at besides more houses exactly like theirs. Both of those people are right. Neither one's bringing it up at the mailbox. The deeper you go, the quieter it actually gets, which I didn't expect. Fewer cars, a sprinkler running on an actual front lawn, not the golf course, somebody watering grass that's already green, because that's apparently still allowed. A kid's bike on its side in a driveway, wheels still spinning slightly, like whoever was riding it got called inside 30 seconds ago and might come back any second. At 11:34, there's a trash truck, automated. The arm is extended toward a driveway on the opposite side of the road, and the camera car goes past it without slowing down. I've watched this moment a few times now. The arm is mid-reach. It looks effortful, which I know is wrong. It's a machine. Effort is not a thing it experiences, but it looks effortful anyway, like it's stretching for something just past where it should comfortably reach. Someone designed that movement very carefully. There's an engineer somewhere who spent real working hours thinking about the angle of approach, the grip pressure. What happens if the bin's been left at a bad angle by whoever rolled it to the curb? Nobody on this street thinks about any of that. The bin goes out, the bin comes back empty, and the only acknowledgement the system gets is mild annoyance if it's running late. And then, 53 seconds later, a hare, crossing left to right. Not running exactly, moving at a pace that suggests it has somewhere to be but isn't late. I don't know why this feels significant. It probably isn't. But we're at the edge of the suburb here. The first farm roads are starting, and the hare crosses the road and the camera holds it for about 2 seconds, and then it's gone into the ditch grass and we keep driving. It felt like something clearing. I'm not sure what. Maybe just the simplest possible signal that we've crossed from one kind of land into another. The kind of animal you don't see on a residential street, doing the most unremarkable thing an animal can do, and somehow that's the moment that registers. Okay, so here's the thing. At 13:30, the footage stops. And I want to explain this without it sounding like an excuse, because it isn't really an excuse, it's just what happened. The camera system, and this is a serious piece of equipment, prosumer uncompressed capture, the kind of setup that requires a lot of things to cooperate at once. The camera system was inside a car that was sitting in direct noon sun in late June in southern Quebec. Not the angled, forgiving light you get in the late afternoon. The flat, overhead, no shadows kind of light that turns a car's interior into something closer to a greenhouse than a vehicle. The cabin had airflow, the AC was on, the windows weren't sealed shut, somebody in the car was reasonably comfortable the whole time, probably complaining a normal amount about the heat and nothing more. The equipment, mounted closer to the dash, closer to the windshield, in the path of more direct sun than a person sitting in a seat ever experiences, didn't have that same relief. It throttled. Then it stopped recording anything usable. Not a crash, not a shutdown, just a system deciding, somewhere in its internal logic, that conditions weren't good enough to keep writing clean frames to disk and erring on the side of giving up rather than giving you garbage. So we lost Candiac. The residential streets, the closed golf course I just spent several minutes describing to you, the specific quality of light through those neighborhoods, the kid's bike on its side in the driveway, gone, or rather never actually captured in any form you could watch. The equipment was there the whole time. Footage just wasn't. It's a strange kind of loss, honestly, because nothing was destroyed. There's no missing tape, no corrupted file sitting there mocking you. There's just an absence shaped exactly like the thing that should have been there. The team's looking at a Peltier-based cooling solution for the rig going forward, small thermoelectric modules mounted against the housing, drawing heat away actively instead of just hoping the cabin air does the job. There's talk of stress testing it on a run through a desert canyon later this year. which, if I'm being honest, seems like an aggressive way to solve a problem we first ran into in a Quebec suburb in June. But that's the plan, and I understand the logic. If it survives a canyon in July, a parked car in Candiac should be no problem at all. Stay with us. What comes back is a farm road, which is fine. It's a good farm road, honestly, once you adjust your expectations. Low horizon, a house, then a gap, then a barn, then another gap that goes on longer than you'd expect, long enough that you start to wonder if the road's actually still going anywhere or if it's just continuing out of habit. The crops are barely started. Early June this far north means just the suggestion of green across the fields, rows you can identify more by the pattern of the dirt than by anything actually growing in them yet. The sun is still doing exactly what it was doing at 13:30, obviously. It hasn't changed its mind about anything. It doesn't know it broke a camera 40 minutes ago. It's just up there doing what June does. A grain silo, the corrugated metal kind, catching the light hard enough that it's almost uncomfortable to look at directly on camera. You can see the image compress a little around it, the sensor straining at the brightness even now, post-recovery. A line of mailboxes on a single post, 4 or 5 of them clustered together for houses that must be set back further than the road lets you see. Road changes character here in a way that suburban roads don't, and it's worth sitting with for a second. The curve isn't aesthetic. The width isn't about curb appeal or making room for 2 SUVs to pass comfortably. The surface is maintained only to the degree that something large, a combine, a grain truck, needs to move across it without getting stuck. There's a different intentionality here, older, less argued over in some town planning meeting. Nobody's optimizing this road for how it photographs. The driver keeps going. There's not much to say about a road like this except that it keeps doing exactly what it's doing, mile after mile, and that's sort of the point of it. Near the end of the drive, there's a government facility. You know it before you can read anything, just from the signage style. Federal signage has a particular grammar to it, the kind that lists 3 organizational layers. A perimeter fence, taller than the golf course one, more serious about it. Institutional buildings that could be from 1987 or 2003 or last year. There's a kind of government issue architecture that simply doesn't age in a way you can read from the road. Research plots in numbered rows, the numbers themselves on small stakes, the kind of place that has a mandate and a budget line in some larger document, and almost certainly a very thorough annual report that gets filed somewhere and read by approximately nobody. They're growing something here, or testing whether something can grow, or testing the conditions under which something might grow somewhere else entirely, and this is just the proving ground. It isn't clear from the road. The actual experiment is happening in a register you can't access just by driving past at 90 kilometers an hour. The camera car goes past. The plots keep going, row after row, off toward a tree line in the distance. You can feel the town arriving before you can see it. More traffic, a gas station, a strip of businesses that have clearly been there a while. Signage that's allowed to be a little worn because everyone already knows what it says. So, 31 minutes of driving, about 17 of narration, and somewhere in between those 2 numbers, a chunk of Candiac that we just don't have and never will. What we do have, a suburb that finished building itself and is now figuring out what comes after that. A golf course slowly becoming a meadow nobody planned for it to become. A trash truck mid-reach toward a driveway, doing exactly what it was built to do. A hare that had somewhere to be and wasn't going to explain itself to a camera. A heat event that turned out to be inconvenient rather than catastrophic. Annoying in the end more than tragic. Some fields early in their season, not yet anything in particular. A government farm testing something we'll probably never learn the results of. St. John's ahead of us now. The fields keep going past the edge of the frame, the way they were going before we got here and the way they'll keep going after we leave. We'll be back when the cooling solution's ready.